Meet Little Woman fans. Last week Melodie and I started to dissect the chapter 35, Laurie's proposal to Joe. Now we are in halfway. I must say that every time when I have a guest in this podcast, it really gives me new perspective to this book and the story and also the films. Melodie and I will also be discussing about Laurie's proposal scenes in the movies. I think one of the major problems in most adaptations is that Laurie is incredibly idealized and his proposal to Joe is romanticized, and that is one of the reasons why millions of people ship Joe and Laurie and want them to be together. Do you know how many Little Woman films there are that include Laurie's proposal to Amy for the past 100 years? The answer is none. It has never been adapted. When Laurie proposes Joe in the novel, he is very abusive. It's emotional manipulation. But when he proposes to Amy, he has grown a lot. He is not abusive. He wants to be Amy's equal, but you never see the difference in the adaptations. We are going to discuss about the 1994 film as well. There are lots of people who see Laurie's proposal very romantic in this movie, and then there are others who think it's kind of creepy. I did find this essay, why Joe seems surprised and even scared when Laurie kisses her in the 1994 film, and this is written by Kitoki. I thought this was very well written, so a shout out to them. This is their answer to a hardcore Joe and Laurie shipper. Maybe I can explain why Joe looks scared and confused during Laurie's proposal scene. Laurie was proposing, along with his love, a life that she could not envision for herself. His proposal fueled those fears already in Joe, that she was not a typical girl and would never fit in and behave as expected of her. Her utter instinct is to very much run away from Laurie and the life he offered her, to be a housewife, and he fueled that insecurity she had and the doubts she had about herself. She could not resolve the turmoil within herself, her true nature versus what society expects of her. That where the first quote added to the gifts that comes in. Even if Joe wanted to marry and be the wife he wanted her to be, she knew she would never be happy. She may have known Laurie forever, yet Laurie did not understand and know Joe based solely on his expectations of their would-be marriage. Traipsing around high society, being the proper wife to the proper businessman that Laurie feels he must succumb to be to fulfill his family's legacy. He offered insignificant things, luxury and fun, never needing to work. Juxtaposed to the end of the film, where Bear proposes, bumbling and awkward as it may have been, her eyes are warm and excited, and the little time she spends with him, which was 7 months in fact, with an additional 3 years of correspondences in the novel, he encourages her passion of writing, her intellectual acuity, her tenacity and boldness, and never once proposed that marriage would mean a life of a typical housewife. He elevates her, in fact. I have nothing to give you, my hands are empty. She grabs hold of his hands and says, not empty now. She didn't need or want luxury or security, only love and support, and the freedom to do and be anything she pleased, both in work and in personality and character. He represented a partner which she could bumble through society with, not meeting those annoying expectations of conduct and behavior. He was just as much a foreigner to such things as she was. The second quote to get gifts implies that those feelings of insecurity, those traits that made her awkward and incompatible with typical expectations of society, were traits to be celebrated and be awe of, which is what Bear is, completely in awe of her, nothing less than she deserves. Fluffy Cakes Estate has left a comment here. How willfully dense do you have to be to not get why a woman would look scared and confused when one man is proposing to her, but enchanted and adoring when a different man does? Question of the day. I love the 1994 film, but it has one major flaw. That is, when Laurie proposes Joe, he says that he's going to work to his grandfather and they can live in London or whatever. That doesn't happen in the novel. In the novel, Laurie says that they can just be lazy and live with his money. That's a huge difference. This is Small Umbrella in the Rain, Little Woman podcast. I'll hurt myself if you say no. Another red flags in Laurie's proposal with Melodie Ellison.
Seeing a ray of hope in that last speech, Laurie threw himself down on the grass at her feet, leaned his arm on the lower step of the stile, and looked up at her with an expectant face. Now that arrangement was not conducive to calm speech or clear thought on Joe's part, for how could she say hard things to her boy while he watched her with eyes full of love and longing, and lashes still wet with the bitter drop or two her hardness of heart had wrung from him? She gently turned his head away, saying, as she stroked the wavy hair which had been allowed to grow for her sake, how touching that was, to be sure. I agree with Mother that you and I are not suited to each other, because our quick tempers and strong wills would probably make us very miserable. If we were so foolish as to... Joe paused a little over the word, but Laurie uttered it with a rapturous expression. Marry? No, we wouldn't. If you loved me, Joe, I should be a perfect saint, for you could make me anything you like. No, I can't. I've tried and failed, and I won't risk our happiness by such a serious experiment. We don't agree, and we never shall. So we'll be good friends all our lives, but we won't go and do anything rash.
Another red flag I have here.
Right? Right? No, this is a chapter of red flags. The whole I'll change for you. I'll change for you. Why don't you change me? It's not good.
Have you read Rose in Bloom?
No, I have not.
Yeah, it has this similar scene where Charlie, who is the Laurie archetype, he sort of wants that Rose saves him from himself, from his misery, from his bad life. So it kind of reminds me that, like, Laurie wants Joe to save him.
Yeah.
But it's not Joe's job to save him or anyone else.
He's that entitled young man, though, right? He wants somebody else to do the work for him, too.
We will, if we get the chance, muttered Laurie rebelliously. No, do be reasonable and take a sensible view of the case, implored Joe, almost at her wits' end. I won't be reasonable. I don't want to take what you call a sensible view. It won't help me, and it only makes you harder. I don't believe you. You've got any heart. I wish I hadn't. There was a little quiver in Joe's voice. Thinking it a good omen, Laurie turned around, bringing all his persuasive powers to bear as he said in the wheedlesome tone that had never been so dangerously wheedlesome before. Don't disappoint us, dear. Everyone expects it. Grandpa has set his heart upon it. Your people like it, and I can't get on without you. Say you will, and let's be happy. Do. Not until months afterwards did Joe understand how she had the strength of mind to hold fast to the resolution she had made, when she decided that she did not love her boy, and never could. It was very hard to do, but she did it, knowing that delay was both useless and cruel. I'm just shaking my head here.
You're right. Right. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things. It's just like how I'd said that one of the members of the book club had said, this scene, it shows what integrity Joe has, because she's saying no, even though it's breaking her heart to break his heart.
And you can feel that Joe feels so bad for him, but also he gives him all the reasons why they should not get married in this chapter. Right. Like he says that, grandfather expects it. Your family expects it. Now he has started to blackmail her.
Yeah. Yep. It's all emotional manipulation and emotional blackmail. It's going to be your fault. Everyone's going to be disappointed. You're not just hurting me. You're hurting everyone. How terrible is that?
Like in that 1933 film where he says that you don't know what you're doing.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I dated a guy who was kind of like this at one point. I only dated him because I felt bad for him, which is a terrible reason to date someone. And I tried to break up with him, and he threatened to throw himself in the gutter. So I didn't break up with him. And then I didn't know what to do. I was just kind of stuck with him. And then he asked me to marry him. And I was young and I thought, well, when someone asks you to marry them, it's supposed to be a happy thing. So I did not have the strength that Joe had. And I said yes. But the very next day I regretted it. But then I felt stuck. And because I was with somebody like this, who was like, it was like he was my child. I kind of wish that young women really read this like deeply, analyze the way the situation is, because this isn't romantic. This is immature. This is emotional manipulation. Well, I think that's one of those things too that the 2019 film really got wrong, is with Joe going back and acting like, oh, I would say yes to him now. It kind of puts Joe in this point of view where she is like the emotionally immature one. You know what I mean? Like, she's the one who doesn't know her heart. She's the one who doesn't know what she wants, but she's going to go ahead and just go with what's ever in front of her. When really that's what Laurie was doing. Laurie was like, everybody thinks we should get married, so we're going to get married. You're the person who I have felt cared for, has made me feel cared for, and I need to feel cared for, so we should get married. I think that's one of those things that the 2019 film really messed up, is it put Joe in that emotionally immature position where that's not really who she was. Like, she maybe didn't fully know her own mind yet, but she also trusted her gut that this isn't right.
Yeah, and it really bothered me in the 2019 film. Like, there's that scene where Joe is just shouting at Fredrik and she behaves like she's a 10-year-old brat.
Yeah.
And Joe in the book is like 24, 25 when that happens, and she knows how to control her temper.
Yes.
So it, like, throughout the whole film, Joe felt really immature and childish. Then I was thinking this moment here. I agree with Mother that you and I are not suited to each other because our quick tempers and strong wills would probably make us very miserable. And there is this moment seen somewhere here earlier where there's this talk between Joe and Marmee. And I think it happens before Joe goes to New York. And Joe says to Marmee that, oh, Laurie has become too fond of her. And then Joe and Marmee talk about her temper, and Marmee says that they are not suited because they are too similar in their tempers. And then Marmee says that Joe's father helped her to control her temper, and marriage requires endless amount of patience. And then in 2019 film, I talked about this with an Alcott schooler, Susan Bailey. She was really disappointed with that scene because this whole part of Joe's father helping Marmee to cope with her temper was not there.
Yes.
And this whole part of Marmee saying that Joe and Laurie aren't suitable because of their temper was not there. And then Marmee kind of encourages Joe to be as angry as she wants.
Yes. And, I think that it really misses the mark too on, I think every book has its own value system, right? And a big part of the value system of Little Women, I mean, the second half of the book is called Good Wives, originally separated. A big part of the value system of the book is the idea that when you find the right person, you make each other better and you are a team. I mean, every couple in this book become a team and become a support for each other. And I feel like the 2019 film really kind of degraded the idea of relationships. Like, it was too focused on the I'm independent, which I feel like you can have your own independence and also be a strong part of a good couple. You know what I mean?
I read one of those Greta Gerwig's interviews where she said that Laurie wants Joe to step into adulthood. And I was like, I don't think she has read this book.
Yeah, no.
Because I have no idea where she got that idea, because we have this chapter.
Whole interaction with Amy and Laurie in Europe where Amy is wanting Laurie to become an adult.
Chapter where Laurie proposes Amy, those times when he actually thinks about proposing Joe again. Yes. And Laurie was the immature party in that relationship. Yes. How can somebody say that they have read this book and not seen that? I just don't get it. I don't think she has even read this book.
I am doubtful that she has also.
Think about it. Timothée Chalamet's hairdo. That was from Christian Bale. Friedrich played the piano. That was from Rossano Brassi. Yeah. They took all these elements from these previous films. I don't think they read this book.
I think you're right.
And it bothered me that Laurie didn't do anything for Amy and Joe behaved like this. Thank you so much for listening. Link to the full episode, I Hurt Myself If You Say No, Red Flags in Laurie's Proposal, is in the description. And you can listen Little Woman Podcast on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and all other major podcast platforms. Take care and make good choices. Bye!